How we doing, everybody? This is Let's Be Real Brad, and today I'm going to be talking about these group of movies that I need to review that I've never had the chance of talking about because they were free on Amazon Prime. I don't know if they still are, and that is the Twilight Saga. So let me give you a little background on this movie. So basically, if you're my age, which is around 21, you grew up listening to a bunch of crazy fans of Twilight, always going to see these movies, always reading the books, and it was always just something that was so annoying because you felt it was just so overhyped. Now watching these movies for the first time, these movies are probably the worst of a franchise I've ever seen. And no, I'm not over-exaggerating, or because I'm a guy, I'm not going to like this movie. Oh, like, shut up. No, these movies are bad. Let's get to it. So we're going to talk about the first one. This movie's a meme, okay? Everybody knows what the first Twilight movie is all about. You got Edward, you got Bella, you got Jacob. He's kind of not hot Jacob in this movie. You have the hilarious baseball scene that is so bad. It is so hilariously funny, and everything about this movie has been parodied to death because this movie is so terrible. You have so many terrible moments with awful writing, terrible dialogue. This movie doesn't feel realistic at all. It almost feels like it's just a fan fiction of, I don't know, something. It's just, God, it's terrible. Acting is so bad. Everyone feels like a wooden character. They don't even feel like real human beings at all. I mean, Edward isn't because he's a vampire, but he just doesn't sell any of these lines, and that's why everyone hates Robert Pattinson, which is really stupid because he's made so many fantastic movies lately, so you guys gotta stop the Pattinson slander. It's been over for a while. There's nothing much I can really say about this movie that anybody doesn't already know. It's really terrible, and the people who really like these movies just really like boring, melodramatic, really over-the-top garbage love story that doesn't amount to anything. So, yeah, let's go on to the next one. New Moon is the worst Twilight movie. Now, this was between this and Breaking Dawn Part 1, but this movie is so atrociously awful, I almost turned this movie off. I just didn't want to do the rest of the marathon. And the reason for this is because there's so much terrible miscommunication the whole movie. I can understand that you have it in certain parts of the movie because you got to keep the plot going. Some of it can feel, realistic. Like, people have miscommunication. But you're telling me Bella has miscommunication with everybody every second of this movie is so ridiculous. Now we have the Team Jacob, Team Edward. She goes back and forth, back and forth. She is basically a certified hoe in this movie. She don't do anything, but she's just playing with people's emotions, and it's just kind of ridiculous. This movie should have been completely chopped up and thrown into like Eclipse or something, because you could have had this being a whole first part of a movie and put it into Eclipse, because Eclipse literally does the same thing from New Moon, and we're definitely going to get to that one next. New Moon just feels like nothing actually matters. It's just crazy melodramatic moments every single scene. Terrible directing. Awful and boring cinematography. The music is so laughably terrible. I completely forgot what it even sounded like because it was so bad. CGI is really terrible. I mean, I know these movies came out in 2008, 2009, but man, it still doesn't look good at all. This movie just feels like a big waste of time. And if you really like this movie, you just like drama. That's what it is. You just like drama going back and forth between somebody. And you just find it fascinating. Oh, Jacob did this, so Bella's got to go to Edward. Well, Edward did this, so she's going to go back to Jacob because Jacob saved her in this situation. Like, shut up! Shut up! This movie needs to go! Next one on this list is Eclipse. This movie is a little bit better than New Moon, but my goodness, this movie is a piece of garbage. I cannot believe they literally just did the same thing with New Moon and just extended it the entire time through Eclipse. Now you got more bad guys in this movie, there's more fight scenes, and that's why it's a little bit better. I mean, there's points where it's entertaining for literally 5 seconds, but then it goes to okay fight scene, then it's just all over the place with this garbage editing. You can't even tell what's going on in these action scenes because the director has no idea how to shoot these scenes. It's just cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. It literally gives my brain an aneurysm from watching this movie. Of course, you have the Team Jacob, Team Edward, back at it again. Woo! Always exciting to see that. It just is a waste of time. There's some horrible, horrendous jokes, especially in the tent, which was so hilariously terrible. I don't understand why people like these movies. I guess Eclipse can be somewhat interesting at times, but then they just put in random storylines all throughout the movie that don't make any sense, and they try to come back later in these movies that literally don't even work at all. This one was a big, fat waste of time. The next one on this list is Breaking Dawn Part 1. So I gave Part 1 and Part 2 the same rating on here that I'll reveal at the end. But we'll go with Part 1 first. Part 1 is honestly so terrible. This would be right there with New Moon. The reason for this is because this could have been one movie. It really could have been one movie. They only did this because of the success of Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2, which I do have criticisms with that, but I thought that one overall did work. This one doesn't work at all. Part 1 literally stretches everything. And I'm talking like not just like a stretch like Mr. Fantastic stretch. Like literally stretched it over so many scenes. They have a wedding scene that goes on for like, it feels like 30 minutes. It is honestly ridiculous. Then you have all the baby stuff that just goes on forever. This movie is way too long. This should have been cut together. It just, nothing happens. The only thing happens in this movie, spoilers if you don't give a crap. So basically they get married. There's a bunch of issues. There's people that don't like it because of vampire and all this. And then they say the same thing over and over again. Bella, you're going to have to be a vampire. Or, Bella, do you really want to be a vampire? Because if you're going to have a family, you're going to have to be a vampire. Because you can't have a vampire baby. You'll die. They say that over and over again. I'm like, dude, she literally says, yeah, I just want it. I just want it. And nobody, like, listens to her. Even though she's just an awful character in this one. Then there's beef with Jacob again. And I'm like, all right, this is ridiculous. Then at this point in Breaking Dawn Part 1, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is... I thought we were past all this. And then there's the wolves again, and I was like, alright, this has got to end with the wolves. Like, they just feel so forced in here just because they have to be in there, and they have a little big thing in Part 2, which I'm going to get into. I completely hated this movie to an unbelievable hatred degree. And that is really, really terrible. So yeah, just skip Part 1 or find a summary of Part 1 because it's literally that bad. It feels like it's so unnecessary, and it probably makes me more angry with New Moon, even though I think New Moon's a little bit more terrible. I mean, there's some things that happen in Part 1 of Breaking Dawn, but man, it feels so unnecessary. Now we get into Breaking Dawn Part 2. I actually think this is the best one. And the reason for this is because it feels like things actually happen. Part 1, nothing happened at all. But with this movie, it seems like they push everything forward. And it actually has a pretty cool fight scene that is so ridiculous and so over the top. I was entertained as hell. But apparently that's not what happened in the book because it has an amazing twist that, spoilers, 3, 2, 1, I mean, you're already here, so who cares? None of that actually happened. It was all a vision given because of what could potentially happen if there was a fight. Because I guess in the original book, they didn't fight at all. They just stood there and talked it out all across on this snowy area. And they just sat there and talked, and they have this whole big team there. Boring, right? That's pretty crap. So I'm glad they changed it up because that was way more interesting, way more exciting. They built to this whole big thing. I felt like there was parts in this movie that were kind of enjoyable, even though it was just so insane. It was so over the top. Bella becomes this insane vampire, and she like can't control like how she acts and always wants to drink blood and crap. Like, I thought that was kind of funny and kind of interesting. They finally did something with Bella's character. Edward in this movie feels a little bit more like an actual like character in this movie, and feels like you can actually watch him. This movie is still really bad, and it still has all of its issues from the first movie. But I felt as though there was actually some stakes and some tension. It feels like there was some excitement, especially going into this big final battle that I thought was kind of enjoyable, to be honest. I mean, it makes it seem like I really love this movie, but comparative to the others, this is like the godfather of all of these movies. I know I kind of rushed through this Twilight series, but to be honest, these movies are just a waste of time. Maybe if they do another Twilight movie, I will review all these movies individually and actually give the time for these movies. But to be honest, if I just go into specifics of why I hate these movies, it's just gonna be kind of monotonous because it's the same issues these movies have constantly. And I think that's my biggest problem with this franchise, because they just do it over and over and over again. And it felt like this could have been like 3 movies altogether, because some of it should have just been chopped up and cut, and it just feels like it's just overextended just the sake of overextending it. I know people are fans of this, and if you really like this, like, alright, whatever. But I genuinely think this is just awful, awful movies. And I'm not just hating on it because it's fun to hate on it. I actually went in with an open mind because I was like, alright, let's see where the hate is. Let's see if this is actually good. And it's just a big, fat waste of time. So if I do ratings for these, I'll give Breaking Dawn Part 2 a 4. Then I will give Twilight a 2. Then I'll give Eclipse a 1. Then I give Breaking Dawn Part 1 a 1. I give New Moon a 1. Hope you guys really enjoyed this review, and let me know, do you guys really enjoy the Twilight franchise? And let me know if there's any positives you guys have with the movie that maybe I was being too harsh. Definitely put some in the comments. I would love to chat with you guys about the Twilight movies, just because I really didn't care for them. And now I don't really have to watch them ever again. But we'll see what happens, because studios love money! If you guys really enjoyed this video, like and share the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It means the world to me that you guys have subscribed, liking my videos. You guys are the best, the best. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video.